Okay, we're here today at DDCEO, and Chris, we've got a doozy here. We've got another paving guy, a leader of a great paving company, and it's going to be fun talking to somebody that's part of building a great organization in the paving industry, because it's an industry that I've been very passionate about. So we want to welcome Vince Hafeli today to Ditch Digger CEO. Welcome, Vince.
Thank you for having me here. Looking forward to it.
Well, Vince, you know what? And what we do here basically is we tell stories. We want to tell stories, and I'm big into mentoring young entrepreneurs, and big into really protecting and really promoting the American dream any way I can. I've been blessed to be part of it, and I really love interviewing people that tell their story. And you've got a great one to tell. And I also love when my guests are people that not only build business and understand how tough it is to build business and build great culture and serve their markets, but also I love interviewing people that actually serve outside business in a philanthropic way. And reading up on you and what you do outside of business is really cool. So I want to talk about that too. But what we like to do is tell a story. So I mean, maybe a little bit about your upbringing, your entering into this industry, and how this business became this great force in the marketplace on the west coast of Florida. A little bit of all that stuff. So if you can share that stuff with us, and we'll ask a bunch of questions, and at the end, Chris will come up with kind of nuggets that he got out of this for nuggets that other people could think about for their own success.
Yep. Well, my upbringing is I'm from a blue collar family. My dad was a coal miner, and my mother worked in a dress factory for many years, and then she eventually went off and started her own little business, entrepreneur in the craft business, if you will. I grew up in the southern part of Illinois, down a lot of strip mining, a lot of underground coal mining. That's what my dad did. A tight-knit family growing up, small family, mother, father, and a brother that was 9 years my senior. We kind of did everything together as a family when I was young. We had camping trailers, ski boats, horses, motorcycles. I eventually came to Florida on spring break in March of 82, I guess it was. My brother had moved to Florida in 75, and I tell people I kind of came to Florida on spring break and never left. I came down with a buddy that I lived with in the dorms, and after a week, he said, it's time to go back. And I said, hey, I've met a girl from Michigan. I'm going to stay another week. And I did. And I flew back after 2 weeks. And when I got back, I called my parents and said, when you pick me up at the end of the semester, bring my 53 Chevy pickup and my 1974 Commando 850 and drop me off in Daytona Beach. And that's what they did. So they dropped me off in Daytona, and from 82 to 85, I was a bartender. I was a busboy. I was a waiter. Spent a lot of time on the beach having fun. And then in 1985, kind of landed into the industry for the first time. I broke into the industry at $4.50 an hour, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, $45 a week. Breaking concrete test cylinders. And I eventually progressed with that same company, and a field technician. Eventually became a system branch manager there, and I went to work for the Florida Department of Transportation in the 90s for a while, and found out a DOT's Ajax's biggest customer, but I just wasn't really meant to be governmental employee. So I left, and I eventually landed at Ajax in 2002. I came in as their quality control manager. Florida had gone to contractor quality control specifications for pay, and they hired me to set up their QC department. And then after being here about 15 months, they came to me and said, hey, you have an MBA degree, and we kind of like to start running the plants more like a business, and we're going to put you over the plant. So I took over and the general manager the plants, and eventually as vice president in 2007, and in 2019 took over as the president of Ajax. So I mean, that's kind of my story. I started about as low as you can. Took me 16 years to get my bachelor's degree, between spring break adventures and getting married in there and trying to raise a family. But I finished that, and then within 2 years got my MBA. And this Friday, on the 18th of August, I'm actually going to be defending my doctoral research. So, with my research being on suicide and construction. So I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit, but that's my background. I mean, do you want to know about Ajax's background and how we landed in Florida? Or?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, that kind of parallel, right? How that happened as well. So that'd be cool.
Yeah. Ajax was originally founded in Michigan in 1951 by a man of the name of Herb Jacobs. And in the 70s, he hired a man by the name of Mike Curran, and in 81, he had an opportunity to take Ajax to Florida. So he sent Mike down here, Mike and his wife, and I think they had a daughter at the time, and they started Ajax. And in 82, they had their first plant put up down here. And Mike grew the company. When I came here in 2002, we were about 78 employees. Today we're about 500. So from 82 to 02, they grew from 1 to 78, and now from 78 to 500. And then in 2013 or so, Jamie Jacobs, which was the owner's son, Herb, approached Mike to find out if he might be interested in buying Ajax, Florida, because Herb had passed away in 02, so Jamie was the CEO, and Jamie wanted the business to stay a family business, and he felt that Mike had pretty much started Florida, and he would like for it to stay with Mike. So Mike is now our CEO and owner, and so Ajax in Florida, while we still collaborate, we share a few things together. We're really two different companies now, but we still kind of view ourselves as one. So yeah, I mean, Ajax came to Florida in 81. I came to 82, but I didn't find them until 2000. It took me 20 years to get over here. And I actually interviewed with Mike 3 times and turned him down twice. Because I came from the engineering side, and you're contractors, so there's a lot of opinions that some contractors aren't ethical and they don't do everything on the up and up, and so I turned Mike down twice over about a 5-week period, and he finally said, "What's wrong?" And I told him I have a very high standard ethically. I'm well respected in the Florida Department of Transportation, and I've always heard the contractors lie and cheat and steal. They're crooks, and I don't want to ruin my reputation. And the hook line that got Mike to hire me, or for me to say yes, was he said, "Well, here's the deal. If we fail, you call and tell the owner first, and you tell me afterwards, and we'll figure out how to fix it." And 21 years here, he is stuck to that. I have nothing but respect for Mike and all that he's done in getting this organization started and what he stands for. So I would never go back to the other side where I worked for geotechnical material firms. I love working for a contractor. You get to see the fruits of your labor every day. You get to meet a lot of unique people. It's a big family. It's a great industry. When I retire, I'm going to miss the people. I may not miss a lot of the other stuff that goes along with what we do, government regulations and all those things. But
sure,
the industry is made up of phenomenal people with some phenomenal stories. It really is.
No doubt. Yeah. I've not interviewed anybody in digital CEO that's from my industry, but I agree 100%. The blue collar world is a great place to be in business. You meet people from all different walks of life, and When you can put them all together, whether it be the highly educated engineers and along with the hardworking labor, your labor force and operators and project manager, who oftentimes become as sharp as any engineers I know, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yes.
I'm getting people in my business, I'm sure you do in yours, that you would bet on, and when it comes to really understand the engineering side of the business, as well as any highly educated engineer that never went to school for engineering, but you've been around long enough, right? And you got to listen and listen to them just as well as anybody, huh?
It's amazing how intelligent a lot of people are in the construction industry, and a lot of people, high school degree or maybe no high school degree, how smart they are, making six-figure incomes, no college debt, have fun every day, and it's an awesome industry.
They're building stuff every day, and like you're seeing, they see the fruits of their labor pretty fast, which is you can't get that in any industry, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's really cool, and I love what you said. That Mike, said, hey, if you fail, we fail, right? You're gonna let the customer know first. Then come to me and tell me about it, right? I mean, how cool is that? Because that's exactly right. When there's failure, oftentimes a contractor doesn't want to admit it, and a lot of times they may try to cover it up, right? They might be fairly ethical, but that's not ethical, right? And so that's an amazing statement he made, and like you're saying, that's a statement you can carry on to your leaders every day, right?
Correct. Yeah. We sign ethical statements every couple of years. All my QC people still do, and the reason we sign those is because I want them to understand that there's no pressure on them to do anything that may be viewed as wrong or unethical. And hey, the numbers are what the numbers are. Tell us what they are, and we'll figure out how to fix it. We'll learn from it.
I love it. Yeah, and sometimes it's a cost to profitability, but in the long run, if you work through those things with your teammates and your customers, relationships that grow from that are incredible, in my opinion.
It can take years to build your reputation, both as a company and as an individual, and it can take less than a minute to ruin all of that work.
That's a great statement that everybody should hear all over again. I agree 100%, Vince. It takes years and years to earn people's respect and their confidence, and a great relationship of trust. And boy, how quick can you lose that, right? And how sad is that when that happens? If when people don't realize the value of that, they're not long for the business world, in my opinion, because that reputation grows fast, right?
Yes, and sometimes you will never earn that respect back or trust.
100%. So when you think about Ajax, like we'll stick with the business, the industry. You guys are road builders. You build racetracks, airports, commercial work, you design, build. I mean, pretty much a little everything, right? Now, tell me about that, and then tell me about your let's say your share of asphalt pavement to concrete pavement jobs.
Well, we'll do that second one. Be the easy one. Here in Florida, we don't do a lot of concrete paving. We do a little bit. Ajax, Michigan is pretty famous in the U.S. for the quality of concrete work they do across the country, particularly in the Midwest and Michigan area. But we do some in Florida, not a whole lot. We are primarily an asphalt producer and paving company. 8 asphalt plants along the southwest coast of Florida. We have done a lot of design build work. Back in 2007, at the time, we were awarded the largest contract the Florida DOT had ever led at the time. That was a design build project. So we're pretty proud of the design build work we do, and we think we do a good job at it and assemble good teams to do that. We do a lot of standard DOT, low bid type work, county, city work. We don't do a lot of commercial paving unless it may be like a larger parking lot and as Amazon or a Sam's or Walmart or something. We sell a lot of mix that we sell to small paving contractors that do that commercial work, and we kind of think of them as, we have 10 Ajax paving crews, but we probably actually have more like 50 paving crews. We treat them as our own, and they're a big part of our business.
Awesome. Yeah, and I've been on both sides of that. I've been a buyer from great manufacturers in the markets we're in, and I actually became a manufacturer. I built a new plant, a GenCore plant back in the day, and then bought a couple plants after that. And so, nowadays we don't own plants. We own some portable ready mix plants, but otherwise we don't own plants. We build relationships of trust with manufacturing, hot mix manufacturers across the country. And people didn't think you could do that everywhere in the country, but we do. And with that, we look at our hot mix producers as great partners. And sometimes we partner with them to do work as well in markets where we're just not set up to go. So it's really works out well. But yeah, if you treat your customers in the paving industry, those mom and pops, you call them buggy runners, you call them mom and pops, whatever. You know what? You'll have customers for life because they rely on you. You shut that plant down early on them, or when the plant breaks down and you have no solution for them. It hurts them in a big way. It could cost their profits for the week, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we kind of feel like we have a responsibility to help those guys keep the doors open. That's our responsibility.
I agree. Yeah. And you do. Otherwise, they get big enough if the customer service isn't there. You figure out how to do it somewhere else, right? How to get their mix or build their own plant. And there's, in my opinion, if you got great hot mix providers, you don't need to own your own plant. You guys work off of lean enough margins, and if you're efficient and you can't build a plant and operate a plant, in my opinion, and make a profit very efficiently when you're competing against someone that does it every single day and has multiple plants like you guys. So that's cool.
And once you put your own plant up, you've kind of set your footprint too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you buy from an old castle, they have several hundred plants across the country. You got a big footprint.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yeah. So tell me, when you look at your culture, I've heard great things about your company in the past as far as culture, and built on values and all that. Do you guys have like stated core values, or do you have a certain culture you guys exude, or tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we have this card. It's our A-team card, and every employee gets this when they come to work here. And our goal is to be the employer of choice, the contractor of choice, and the partner of choice. And we want to be the partner of choice that all the subcontractors want to work for us because we treat them well and take care of them. We want to be the contractor of choice because we want people in the design and build world, we want them to give us favorable scores early in the process because they like to work with us. We want private developer to say, hey, I may be willing to pay a little more to use Ajax because of the quality of work I'm getting. But the biggest piece of that being the employer of choice. You can go buy a new GenCore plant, but if you don't have anyone to run it, all you have is a GenCore plant, right?
Yes, right.
So people, and a lot of people say this, people are our most valuable asset. And it's easy to say, and it's a little more difficult to do. Because it takes work, it takes effort, it takes commitment, it takes sharing the resources of your company, sharing the profit of your company. So yeah, it's easy to say that, hey, people are our most important asset, but you got to concentrate every day and live by that. So yeah, I mean, we got a mission statement like everybody does, and we got our core beliefs and values, but we really just hinge ours on being the contractor, partner, and employer of choice.
I love it. That covers all of it, right? I mean, if you build a great culture with great teammates, right? and they're passionate about your business, and they're going to be passionate about serving your customers and your subcontractors are going to feel that when they interact with your team, right?
Yes.
That's it sounds simple, but if you focus on it every day, it's not simple, but it becomes a heck of a lot more easy when that's in the mindset of every teammate you have, right? From that new employee to yourself.
And you've always got to be looking to change what's new out there and stay out in front of it. So you do create a good culture to where people want to come, but more importantly, where people want to stay once they get there.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you think about the economy in your neck of the woods, now I moved full time. I'm kind of a neighbor now. I'm down here in Naples and a little south of your southernmost facility, but I see you guys a little north of me here working and stuff. I stopped by and watched you work. But either way, when I think of economy nationally, I mean, I'm from Chicagoland area, so I've seen great economies there for a long time. In the last 10 years or so, not so good, and it's really been a tough economy there. And our industry, yours and my industry, is definitely stunted in a big way compared to the rest of the country. When you see your state and the boom that's happening, how do you look at that when you invest in this in your business and you look at you and the leaders of your company look at how you're investing for the future? I think that your market's going to continue to grow through even some tough times ahead, because I see that people from across the country want to live in your backyard. What's your opinion on that? Are you guys aggressively going forward investing in your business, or are you kind of like a little conservative on the growth, bearish or bullish?
Well, we've always kind of grown just by opportunity. We don't have big growth plans. Just when an opportunity has come along, to be prepared for it. The Florida economy is good, and there's a good work program funded for the next 3 years or so. And I think it will still be fine after that. There's going to be a point when the economy in Florida will start to go the other way as far as the building boom and everything that's going on, just pure number wise, right? I'm a baby boomer, and hey, all of us baby boomers are either retired or getting ready to retire, and some have started to die, and the rest of us are working on dying. We're at that age. So all these homes and everything that's being built down here, at some point there's going to be a lot of these homes that are going to be sitting looking for people to buy them. So, I mean, I think I don't have anything to worry about while I'm working, but I think there will be a time in Florida when you see the boom start to go the other way. But, that's not just Florida, that's nationally, as the baby boomers, but we're heavily populated with a lot of the boomers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contractors in Florida, and there's a lot of contractors that want to come to Florida, and there's a lot of contractors that come to Florida and leave because they find out Florida kind of a tough place to work. So we're prepared for what the future brings for us, and that's kind of the way we've always been looked at it. If there's opportunities there, we'll be ready to go. But we're 500 people, and some days that's a big animal in itself to take care of. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Well, I think you're in a great place, and as you're saying, of course, there's going to be downturn ahead eventually, and you're going to build your business to be strong enough for that, right? So it's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
When you think about your biggest differentiations in production and things like that, over the last 10 years, what technologies come about to make your crews, more productive, higher quality, to give them the ability to deliver higher quality? What kind of differentiation have you seen in your industry that you're able to take advantage of in the last 10 years, let's say?
We've done some jobs with gradeless staking. I've jumped all off of GPS and electronic, so that cost savings. A lot of the different GPS millimeter type paving. We're actually looking right now at some technology to where the guys driving our plant loaders are actually going to be inside in air-conditioned buildings, not out getting beat up on the equipment all day long, which will give the guys a healthier life. They're not going to get a lot of these repetitive injuries from riding in loaders around plants all the time, so it'll extend the life of how long a loader operator at a plant can work, but it'll also give him a better quality of life when he goes to retire, because he'll be physically a little more healthy than they are today. So we're getting that started.
Oh, so would that be like, Vince? Is that like remote control or something like that for those big loaders?
It's going to start a semi-autonomous to where the loaders will have 360 cameras on them. They'll set inside. You can actually, if you drive a cat loader and want cat loader controls, they can do that. Or if you just want a generic type of loader control. So it's not going to eliminate an employee, because, hey, when the plant goes down, you've been around them. You got to go out and clean and grease, and you got to lube, you got to do all that. But it'll give you opportunity to do things like, hey, if the plant 2 hours away from here goes down and they need to go out and work on it, and you still have incoming materials coming in, the guy sitting here across from my office will be able to run that loader 2 hours away from here.
That's
keep
cool.
Keep the operation going.
That's awesome. I love it.
So, yeah, I mean, we have, Ajax has a history of spending a lot of money on technology that goes nowhere. And it's kind of, I guess you could say, money wasted, but it's not wasted because we always learn from it. Yeah. And if you're not spending money looking for the next silver bullet out there, you're not going to find it. So we're big into innovation and looking for creative ways to do things. And that's not just with our iron, that's with our training and education and anything we can do for our employees as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we're the same way. We continually spend money on new technology and looking for the best, most productive, high quality equipment to the marketplace. And a lot of times, as you said, it's going to cost you money and it's not going to deliver a lot of value. But when it does hit, whether it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 5 times, in the end, you win. You've got a company that people love working for because you're innovative. You got customers that love you serving them because they know you're innovative, right? And in the long run, it works out if you're focused on it in a smart fashion, right? You can't just go after everything, but a lot of things that we can invest in to continue to be better.
And a lot of younger people don't want to work for companies that are being innovative. They've got ideas. So, I mean, it's also a tool for getting new people into your company. Absolutely.
So tell us about, philanthropically, I've read up on you and the stuff you're doing, and boy, it's really cool. Let's share with us some of the stuff you're doing and how you came about understanding there is a problem. And just like, what you do as a leader, what I try to do as a leader, and I try to mentor all our leaders to do is really just solve problems, right? If you solve the problem of your customers, you're going to have customers that want to stick with you. Solve the problem of your teammates, right? And your employees, they're going to want to be there as well. But tell us about a problem you found that you've gotten way behind and are really behind in the industry, for the industry and philanthropically for the community.
Okay, well, we're talking about suicide and mental health, so let's just throw that out there so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yep.
How did I get there on that topic? Well, it began with, like I mentioned earlier, I'm in finishing stages of a doctoral program, and in June of 21, I told a professor that I wanted to research frontline leadership in our industry, how we take the guy that's great at running the paver, and when we lose the foreman, we say, hey, you're great at running the paver, so you're the boss now. Yeah. And we set them up for failure because they're not prepared for that. I wanted to study what maybe other industries have done and how they bridged that, and he kind of looked at me and chuckled, and he said, that's weak and lame. It's been done before. And I pushed back and said, well, no, it's not. I've looked, and nobody in construction and asphalt to study that. And he said, hey, they did it in the medical profession. They studied why great physicians fail when they make them hospital administrators. He said, go change the narrative in your research. And I'm done. Go find something better.
Wow.
I had already written a paper that I published for a conference over in India where I presented. And the hook line of that paper to get people in was suicide in the construction industry. So I kind of had looked at it, but not in great depth. So I began to dig into the numbers. And hey, being transparent, in 2007, I was going to take my life about a half mile that direction, right behind the asphalt plant one night, and got a call that stopped me. So I had lived it. And so now I started researching it. And I learned that in our industry, construction is the second highest industry in the U.S. when it comes to suicide. I learned that nationwide, we lose about 2 to 3 workers a day to job-related injuries. They might be hit by a car intruding into a work zone, a trench collapse, buried beneath the surface, fall from height, 2 to 3 a day. Yet in that same industry, we lose 10 to 15 a day to suicide. In our industry, we lose a construction worker about every 2 hours to suicide.
Wow.
And so, I dug into that and into the research, and, and so then, there's people ask, well, why? Well, there's all the documented reason that researchers have come up with, and opiate addiction, alcohol addiction, repetitive injuries over time. So people get hooked on alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, remote work, away from the family, periods, if you're up north, of months where you don't have a paycheck. So there's all these reasons. And so I said, well, I'm going to look at this from a different angle. There's an old saying that people can't fix what they don't know is broken. Mm-hmm. So I decided I was going to interview. I'm on the National Asphalt Pavement Association Board of Directors, so I know a lot of people from across the country. I decided I'm going to interview these executives and find out, hey, where are they at on this topic and what are they doing? Well, I quickly learned when I began interviewing them that nobody knew it was a problem. Nobody thought it was a problem. And thus, none of them were doing anything because there wasn't a problem. Yet, a lot of them I talked to said, well, I've lost a couple of employees to suicide, but I just kind of thought it was us. I didn't think it was an industry problem. So I then decided, well, I'm going to reach out to someone I know, a gentleman by the name of Cal Byers. Cal has done a lot with mental health, opioid addiction, alcohol, suicide in the industry for many years. And so I asked Cal, give me some companies that that are really addressing that topic and doing a good thing. And he did. So I began interviewing them. And what I learned from those companies is that most of the companies that are addressing mental health and suicide and doing something good about it, more than 80% of them began those programs after they lost someone to suicide. So very few, 20% of the ones I interviewed started just because, 80% started because they lost someone. So I decided, I got to do something about this, right? So it initially began with, hey, I'm going to do something at Ajax. So I relayed to 16 of our company leaders in July of 21, which was, just a month after I talked to that professor, that in January 3rd, 2022, at our annual safety meeting, I'm going to get up in front of 400 plus employees and tell them we're going to elevate the culture of Ajax. We're even going to make it a better company. We're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about suicide awareness. We're going to encourage open conversation. We want you to share stories if you want. And if you don't want to share stories, that's okay as well. We want you to feel free to tell us you're struggling if you are. There'll be no repercussions. We'll help you. We'll support you. If you need time away, we'll pay you while you're away. And for whatever reason, that same day on July 16th to 21, I told the 16 people in that room about the night I was going to take my life here behind the asphalt plant. And for 14 years, the only people who knew was my ex-wife, my son, and I. So I told him, and then in October of 21, I told my current wife, and at the time, Stacy and I had been married 13 years. I was sitting in the backyard one night with tears in my eyes, and she wanted to know what was wrong. And I said, I'm going to tell you a story. Probably I should have told you before I told 16 people at work. But I told her, and she said, well, how do you feel now? And I said, you know what? I feel like I can finally breathe. I feel like I finally got all of this off of my shoulders, and I can finally breathe. So, fast forward to January 3rd, we did what I said we were going to do. We told all the people, and within hours of the meeting ending, I began to get emails from employees and telephone calls from employees saying thank you. One stands out in particular. It was a project superintendent. He called me, and he emailed me, and he said, I've had an operator, and I felt like for months something just wasn't right. I didn't know, should I talk to him? Could I talk to him? How would I talk to him? And he said, we talked on the way back today after the meeting, and he's going to go get some help. And he said, you know what? I realized I need to get some help as well. Well, that equipment operator came to me at our mid-year meeting in July, and he said, what you did on January 3rd saved my career and saved my marriage. I was the last one to see an employee by the name of Mark in 2015 that took his life, an employee here at Ajax. I walked out, he was sitting in his car. I waved, he waved. We smiled, we drove away, and 3 hours later, Mark was gone. Office comedian, office clown, never had a clue. So, we started talking about it. I never knew the gentleman one door down from me lost his father to suicide. And he shares that now, so I'm not telling you anything that is not there. I never knew that the guy one door to my left lost a couple of uncles to suicide, and lost several military friends to suicide. I never knew the lady on the other side of the office had once thought about it. I never knew the lady down the hallway had lost several family members, had once stopped her mother out. And I tell people, you know what, all those stories were always there. We just never knew they were there because we didn't tell people it was okay to share and ask for help if you needed it. So September is National Suicide Awareness Month in the U.S., and the first week is National Suicide Awareness in Construction. So this year, from September 5th through the 8th, is awareness in construction. So what we did last year was we created a toolbox talk around Mark that took his life in 2016. And I went out and the 3 crews in Tampa on that first Tuesday after Labor Day. And the first crew we go to wants to tell you about an alcohol intervention that they had done a few weeks earlier. And these guys were smiling. They were happy. They were proud of what they had done for one of their coworkers. We go to the next crew, and a gentleman wants to tell us about his father that took his life 10 years earlier, and how he walks in an annual walk now every year with a picture of his dad on his back to try to educate others to not do this, what the pain it created. We go to the third crew, and a gentleman on that crew wanted to show us his wrist where he had tried to take his life. So, this was always there, and it was always within our company. We just didn't know it was there because we didn't say you could talk about it. So, I began, I did a TEDx talk, and then I went to the Asphalt Association, and I spoke at Springfield, Illinois, in your home state. I spoke to them last spring. I've been to Indiana, Alabama, Virginia, South Carolina, Louisiana, Florida, all across the country. Last week I was in Mobile, Alabama, and Tuesday in Boston on Thursday. And I have not been anywhere that I've talked, and I've talked to over 10,000 men in person in the last 8 months. I've had one person make one negative comment. At all the other events, people want to tell you their stories. I finished the talk in Boston and went down and sat at the bar to have a sandwich, and a gentleman walked up and sat down beside me, and he said, "Who called you and stopped you?" I said, "Well, yeah, it was my wife, ex-wife now." And he said, "It was a 2-year-old that stopped me." the 2-year-old walked in and said, "Daddy, I love you, and Jesus loves you." As I sat there, I looked at the shotgun.
Yeah.
I get those stories everywhere I go. And now it's encouraging. I'm starting to get more and more follow-ups from, hey, my organization wants to do something. What do we do? Where do we begin? How do we address this? So that's coming out of these talks. So that's a positive. I think John Deere's getting ready to work on something that they want to address this nationally and internationally. John Deere actually signed a proclamation that I did on February 7th of this year. I had this idea that if I could do a proclamation, turn the camera, it's hanging here on the wall, you can see it, from industry leaders that would say that we're no longer not going to allow discussion about mental health and suicide in our organizations. In fact, we're going to promote and encourage those conversations. It was signed by Dave Bauer, president of ARTBA. It was signed by Doug Carlson, president of the National Utility Contractors Association, Jared Perdue, the Florida Department of Transportation secretary, Jamie Roush, the president, general manager of Dynapac America. It was signed by John Deere. It was signed by some international contractors, national contractors, and Florida contractors. Some of those people that signed that in February have since lost employees to suicide. So, I get some people that say, God, I realize the numbers. And by the way, where did you get those numbers? Well, I got them from the Centers for Disease Control. They're not my numbers. I didn't do survey. These are documented numbers. Well, why haven't we known? Well, the numbers were only began being gathered in 2016 for our industry. So it's relatively new. What do you know anybody this has ever happened to? Well, if I had my journal here that's an inch and a half thick, I could tell you all the names. So, I mean, I tell them, hey, I was at the ARTBA, the fly-in in Washington in May at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, I guess it was, Tuesday, Wednesday. I got an email from a gentleman in Louisiana, and they had lost someone. 2 hours later, I went downstairs at the ARTBA meeting. They said, hey, Vince, we know what you're doing. Could you talk about it for 10 minutes? And I did. And when I finished, the gentleman came up crying. And he said, we lost an employee over the weekend to suicide. And I got back to Florida on Friday and got a call from a contractor in Orlando that said, last weekend we lost an employee. So, I mean, it's real. It happens. They're not fabricated numbers. The numbers are actually higher than what is actually reported because a lot of suicide don't get reported as suicide. They estimate that the numbers are actually 50 to 60% underreported. Nationally, about 14 people out of every 100,000 die by suicide. Yeah. If you're an iron worker in this industry, it's not 14, it's 73. If you're an equipment operator, it's not 14, it's 65. If you're a laborer, it's around 60. So it's only blue collar, right? Well, no, if you're a project superintendent, it's 45. So you can't just say that if the uneducated lower blue collar workers, it's across the industry. It's at all levels. And it hits a lot of men like you and I that have been powerful figures in the industry. They get to the end, and that's all gone. The suicide rate for men over 75 is off the chart. And the most recent numbers, which just came out not too long ago, the biggest increase was for individuals 45 and above.
Wow.
It's real.
So Vince, this is incredible because I've heard of suicide in our industry. I would have never imagined that it was more than accidents, right? And the business I've been around, I've seen accidents on the jobs that have taken lives and big major injuries. Our business is one that we have a foundation that gives back to community in a bunch of different ways. This is not. I mean, we've participated in some suicide prevention stuff, but not to anything like what you're talking about, because we sincerely didn't realize it was this big a problem. I mean, I never would have. I would have thought maybe, probably half the amount of people die from suicide as construction accidents, right? Because we build our business on being the safest we can be in the world and our industry. Because we know that if we lose one life because we're not paying attention, right, and we're not safe, all the money we make over the course of our career doesn't mean a heck of a lot, right? If our teammates can't go home safe, we failed. And so when I think about this is even bigger problem. And I agree. I think that many of us brush this under the rug, myself and my teammates included. If there's a problem, boy, maybe we shouldn't talk about it. It's going to embarrass somebody, whatever it might be, right? But I believe that you're opening up a can of worms that needs to be opened up. And how cool is it that this whole vision you've had to dive into this? There's no doubt in my mind it's saving lives, right? No doubt in my mind. If people can talk to others about this and not in a open fashion, share experiences because they care about each other. Okay, not only are you going to solve problems and have less suicides, in my opinion, you're going to have a better organization where people. I believe when you care about safety and you show that you care about safety and you invest in safety, then you build a better company, a better culture. I'm very confident we've done that with our foundation that gives back and with our safety, our drive for great safety. Okay. But you know what you're doing is even better in my opinion, because you're getting people to talk about something that many people don't think. If people have not experienced this stuff, don't feel like it's appropriate to talk about it, right? But if you build a culture that says, if you want to talk about these things, we're going to give you the ability to do that. If you've ever experienced any of this, we're going to give you the ability to talk about this and share experiences. And with that, what do? You're building better, tighter, in my opinion, relationships, teammate to teammate, from the person new on the job that understands you're doing this to you, the leader, right, of the business. So I think that the value of this, first and foremost, is if you can save lives, that's an amazing thing, right? But on top of that, I'm very confident. If I look at your organization, since you've been involved in this and talking about it, I can tell you that I know for sure your organization's become tighter and tighter knit. That means they don't want to go somewhere else. Yeah. Somebody offers them a little more money, they're not going to have the family atmosphere that cares like you're building. So there's so many levels of coolness in what you're doing, man. I love it, and I want to offline talk to you about it, because I want we have a similar amount of teammates. We have about 550 people in our 13 little companies, and I want this to be part of our culture too. So it's in my opinion, this is something that catches on to any of us that lead with compassion and authenticity, that really want our teammates to be safe, to be successful, all right, and to live great lives. So I love it, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, we should have done the mental health piece before we did the physical safety piece, because, hey, if you walked out the door this morning and your wife called you and said, hey, the results came back and I have breast cancer, I can put a hard hat on you and give you some safety glasses.
Yeah.
But if your head's not there, none of that stuff. Do I really want you being the one with the stop-go paddle protecting me while you're thinking about your wife that's home struggling? So I had a gentleman email me, it's been probably 2 months ago now, on a Saturday, and he said, I need the helpline number. And I thought I knew what he meant, but I didn't want to assume. So I responded back, what helpline number would that be? And he said, the suicide helpline number. So, hey, I immediately called him and we talked, and I got him that number, and I got him some other resources. And I followed up with him. And during the conversation, I asked him if he needed some time away. I said, and if you do, don't worry about pay. We'll pay you while you're away. Because you know what? It would be cheaper for me to pay him to be away 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, than it would be for me to find his replacement, because I might have to hire 3 or 4 people to get what I had. So I offered that to him. But then, I called him Sunday and checked on him, and he was still struggling. And I checked Monday, and he's still there. Tuesday, he sounded a little better. I gave him Wednesday off. And when I called him Thursday, I thought he had won the lottery. The difference between Saturday to Thursday was we had got him to a counselor that he talked to twice. He was going through marriage issues. He and his wife had agreed to go seek some counseling to try to save their marriage. So this guy went from wanting the helpline number to now having all this great hope. And I think that was probably in April. And I called him on July 4th and said, hey, it's a holiday weekend. I'm just wanting to make sure, hey, how are things going? And he said, hey, things are a lot better. Thank you for asking.
That's amazing.
So, a lot of people say, where do I begin? It's not hard to begin. I tell people how we began was we said that in 2023, we're going to do 4 toolbox talks, 1 a quarter. We're going to say that it's okay to talk about your struggles. Mm-hmm. And we're going to buy some hard hat stickers to give guys with the 988 number on there. Just to kind of put it out there. Because I said, you know what? People will drink out of a straw, but people don't like to drink out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
So that's how we approached it, and it just took off on its own.
I look at this though too. It takes a leader like yourself, right? To just, people look at you that you've come from the bottom, you've gone to the top, and people look at you like, you're probably lucky, or you just got nothing, and there's no problems in your life. Of course, you're successful, and you just had no problems in your life, right? But when they realize you've had challenges in your life, right? And you're free, and you talk about those challenges, I believe that it opens everybody up to say, it's okay. It's okay. And guess what? Shame on me. I lost my wife almost 3 years ago now. I got a call that she had a tumor. I got a call that eventually we got the call that it was malignant. I lost her 3 years ago. Do I talk to all my employees about that? No, I haven't done a lot of that. I feel like, gosh, I got to be strong. I'm leading these companies. I'm supposed to be the tough guy, the strong guy, right? But how crazy is it that challenge that I had in my life, I don't share to maybe make other people's lives better by realizing that, hey, Gary, Rabine, he's got it all. He doesn't have these problems. No, they should know that I have these problems. They should know that I've had these challenges. And for me not to share those, in my opinion, after listening to you, is really kind of cowardly, actually. So it's amazing, dude. I'm telling you, what you shared with us is going to make a difference in my life and my teammates. And I think you do that every day. So how cool is it that you're able to run this company, this great company, Ajax? On top of that, you're able to inspire others, not just to lead in business, but to lead personally, and sharing experiences that aren't so easy to share. So it's really cool. I really appreciate you and what you're doing, man. It's something else. So I want to be able to call you. I think I got your cell number through Chris, and I want to call you about that and what we can do. I'd love to take. I'll drive up to you. Actually, I'm not that far south of you. I'll drive up to one of your offices and meet up with you, take you to lunch or breakfast sometime if you'll do that. Yeah. All right, we're gonna do that. We're going to do that. We got to about 5 more minutes. I want to make sure that Chris gets in, the elements of what he's learned in this podcast, and then a little bit of what I saw too, and we can close it out. But man, you're an awesome guy, and I really appreciate the time with you today, because you're a guy that's going to continue to make a difference in other people's lives, because you got the courage to talk about your experience, and thanks for that. So Chris, tell me what you got out of this. This amazing guy, Vince.
Yeah, I gotta collect myself on that one, man. Vince, that was incredibly powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us. We've had luminaries across industries on here, and they've left major impacts on myself, Gary, and our audience. But I can't say I've ever shed a tear during our interviews, and this, I was trying to keep it together, but that definitely it right in the feels. So thank you for having the courage to bring up these topics and get these conversations going, because it will save lives, and it clearly has already. I did have one quick question before I just jump into my nuggets of wisdom. some folks, you have an inkling that they're struggling. Some you have no idea. What's the best way to help someone you have a thought that maybe they're struggling?
Well, there used to be this idea that if you thought someone was struggling, that you should not ask them. Because if they weren't and you did, if I went to say, hey, Chris, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? Chris might suddenly think, well, no, I hadn't, but now that you mentioned it, hey, but that's been completely proven false. But you need to know how to approach the topic. We've sent people here at Ajax through mental health first aid training to educate them on some of that. So you wouldn't walk up to someone and say, hey, you're not thinking about doing something stupid like killing yourself, are you? Because the wall's up and, hey, no, I'm not. But you begin through observations. Hey, Gary's from a paving background. You go out to the crews and they're generally all together, like a bunch of Rice Krispies. But you start to notice suddenly that Bob's not with the crew anymore. He's kind of hanging out over here by himself. He doesn't have a lunch with them, or he doesn't talk to them when they're done at the end of the day. He just leave and quit. So something's going on in his life. So you begin with a conversation about, hey, Bob, you're not with us anymore. And is there like anything going on, anything I can help you with? And he may not answer you on day one, but if you have that conversation enough with him, he eventually will. And if he begins to tell you his struggles, then at some point you're going to ask him, well, you're not thinking about taking your life, are you? Because now you've gently gone into that topic with him. And if he tells you, yeah, I have been thinking about it, then there's a follow-up question you need to ask at that point. Okay, well, if you're thinking about it, have you thought about how you would do it? Because you want to know how deep have they gone. And,
wow.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about it. And I've thought about how I would do it. Well, how? And, if they tell you, hey, I'm going to jump off of the 27th floor, I'm going to shoot myself. Well, hey, if you're going to jump off the 27th floor, then we're going to get with the foreman and we're going to figure out how you can't go to the 27th floor anymore. If you're thinking about shooting yourself, I want your guns. I had that conversation with one of my best friends about 3 months ago. On a Friday, work's going bad. He says, I just don't even know if I want to go anymore. And I said, well, Jake, you're not thinking about doing what I think you're saying, right? And he said, no, I'm good. And I said, well, maybe you should have given me your guns anyway. So you look for signs. People start asking, hey, you got a friend that loves working on his cars, and suddenly he comes in and says, hey, I'm thinking about getting rid of all my tools. I'm not going to need them anymore. Does anybody want them? Well, why are you thinking about getting rid of your tools? What's going on? Or so there's just subtle signs, and you may get other people that get very angry and get very hostile and will make statements like I did at one point. Hey, life sucks. Life isn't fun anymore. I don't even know if I want to be here anymore. Well, that's a pretty blatant, obvious statement that someone's not in a good place. Yeah. But from what I've learned from talking to most people, those are the anomaly statements. It's the subtle things that you have to pick up on. Yeah. And you pick up on those by being a caring person that's looking out for those around you. This really all goes back to just be a good person.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, and again, I look at this as, we're on this podcast to mentor people on how they can find their American dream, right? How they can, their ditch digger CEO, their rags to riches story, right? And that's fun to talk about. Yeah. You know what? I got to tell you, success isn't just about, growing great businesses like you guys have done and we think we've done, right? Really, success is about the difference you're going to make in the life of others before you leave this earth, right? I think that I love God, and I believe God wants us to make the biggest difference we can, positive difference we can before we leave this earth, right? And I got to tell you, you're on a path to make an amazing difference in this world before you leave it. And because you're going to duplicate what you're doing. You're going to have the next leader in Ajax is going to be, you're not going to pick a leader that's not compassionate, that's not authentic, that's not about, being like you, right? So again, the difference you're going to make in this world is going to be incredible. And it's really fun to get to know you, because guess what? I'm going to make a difference in this world in many ways. But now guess what? I've got to figure out how we can be more aligned with what you're doing, because I'm confident that we have challenges. And I'm very confident that people like me have stories to tell. And if I tell stories, they're like, gosh, I guess Rabine's, they know I'm kind of a hillbilly. They know I'm not perfect, okay? But they mostly think I'm probably pretty solid and I don't have these, any problems emotionally and all that. But guess what? I've had many of them. And so to share those can't be a bad thing, in my opinion. And I'm not afraid to open up to people. So I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to ask my leaders to do it. And I'm going to talk to you about how we build this into our business and our culture. So
there's one last thing I want to leave you with, and if you can use it, you can use it. And if not, is people need to learn not to say, I'm sorry your son committed suicide. I'm sorry your coworker committed suicide. People don't commit suicide. People die by suicide. People don't commit to having brain cancer. People don't commit to having a heart attack. People don't commit to having a mental health struggle that leads them down the path of suicide. People commit robberies. People commit burglary. People commit all kinds of crimes, but people don't commit to killing themselves. It's a struggle, and typically people that take their lives get there through a journey like I did. I didn't go through how I got to that point, but it began 18 years earlier, and it was about me being a man and not sharing that with anyone. And it finally got to a boiling point to where I just couldn't take it anymore. So how much stronger do you feel that you, after you shared it, right, and you continue to share it? I mean, it's got to make you feel pretty good that your story can make others stronger, and probably makes you stronger at the same time. I would tell you that I feel, but I don't feel. I know that I am way more respected by my peers and by my employees and even my family once I finally shared the story that came out. I always thought I would be. I told Mike Coran that I alluded to earlier, I came here in October of 2002, and in June of 2003, I walked into his office and said, I want to be president when you're done. And I wasn't going to tell him of my struggles, because if I could manage my own life, why would he let me manage the company, right? Yeah. But I eventually shared that story at a peer group meeting with 7 or 8 other contractors, because one of the contractors had lost 2 employees to suicide, and he wanted to talk about it. And I shared my story that day, and when we left the meeting, Mike put his arm around me and said, that was powerful, and that was strong, and I'm proud of you for doing that. So I tell people just the opposite of what everything that I thought would happen, the opposite has happened.
Yeah. That was something how we grew up as men, and think that we have to be strong, and you can't share your feelings, and it's weakness, right? When actually it's the opposite. It's strength. So, hey, Chris, what else do you get out of this all-star? We got, it's different people. What else do you get out of them? We got a couple other, we only got a few minutes, but I want to try to share a couple of things, little lessons that you can pass on that you heard.
Well, of course. It takes years to build your reputation and minutes to lose it all. People are your most valuable asset. Create a culture where employees want to stay. If you're not spending time and money looking for that next silver bullet, you're not going to find it. So any money you spend that turns out to not be the silver bullet, that's just the cost of finding the silver bullet. It's not failure. The cost of finding the silver bullet. That's major perspective shift. Use innovation. Use your company being innovative as a recruiting tool. People can't fix what they don't know is broken. People will drink out of a straw, but they don't like to drink out of a fire hose. I think that can be applied to.
That's a good one.
We discussed today. And finally, be a caring person. Keep an eye on everyone around you and check in with them if you notice them acting differently. Vince, where can our audience find out more about you and all your amazing work?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn, and I do a lot of posting on there, and I share a lot of events and talks and lessons learned. I have just a very rudimentary website, www.vincehafeli.com, but LinkedIn, is a great way for people to get in contact with me. I have talked all across the country, and I'm not a keynote speaker, so I've done this all on. Ajax has bought me airplane tickets and hotel rooms, and I talked right after July 4th to Preferred Materials in Orlando, and Preferred's my biggest competitor. So it's about changing the industry, regardless of who you are and where you work. That's the mission.
And I think it's about you're about not just the industry, in my opinion. You're changing the mindset of what leadership should look like, and I think that's really important. I think our industry for sure has a problem, as you said. But you know what? Every business leader could be stronger by doing what you're doing, right? By leading with shared experiences, not afraid to talk about the toughest challenge we have in our lives, because everybody's got them. But we need to as leaders embrace the challenge that we've had, share those challenges we've had, because the others, I believe, will feel more like, gosh, I've got similar problems that Vince has, that Gary has, right? And I think it makes it easier, and I think it builds better bonds and relationships for sure. So you're an all-star. I tell you what, Vince Hafeli, we appreciate you being on today, and I really appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm gonna become a better person because of you. So thanks so much. And I'm calling you now because I want to get to know you better, and I actually want to create the process with our own Rabine Group companies. Okay.
You got my number.
Well, thanks for being on Ditch Digger CEO today. This is amazing. Amazing experience for me to have you on, and our listeners are going to get a ton out of this, and the world's going to be a little better place because of our new friend, Vince Hafeli. So thank you so much, buddy.
All right. Thank you.
God bless you.
All right. Bye.